Welcome, chat. It's Monday, April 15th. Dr. Michael is out. I do apologize. Our case of the Mondays here in office has evolved. We're all getting pretty bad about it. So Lux and I have some conversations to have to hopefully alleviate it, and Michael will be back with us later this week. Don't forget, as you come on in, to like the stream, take a seat, and if you have a green name, take advantage of those emojis.
All right. Hello to everyone. If you are here, that means you're watching Wisecrack Live with me, Lux, not Michael Burns. Incredible. What a twist. Shocking. Disturbing.
Where is Michael?
Incredible turn of events. No one knows what happened to Burns. He's missing. That's not true. He's helping his family. But with me, of course, is incredible producer extraordinaire Henry.
Hola.
And in fact, I saw someone in the chat ask, is this the Henry on camera premiere? We were just discussing that. If we can get above 420 viewers, we'll put Henry on the screen. So tell your friends.
Tell your friends, share the link, share the show. Do you want to hear Lux talking to an off-screen voice, or do you want to see two people chatting? The choice is yours.
Yeah, exactly. You'll have to find out what Henry looks like if you can get enough friends. Yeah, Burns is still in Canada. I said helping his family because that's like the corporate term we're supposed to use. It's his corporate family he's helping by going through re-education. And hopefully he'll be back soon. As long as he takes his lessons to heart.
Yeah, he was bad-mouthing syrup or something. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I mean, he's a smart boy. He'll learn.
Yes. But we got some fun stuff to talk about today, which is, crazy. I skipped breakfast because I'm a little bit manic because, like they say, hungry dogs run fast. So, Henry, what do you want to start with? We got some real stuff happening.
Yeah, we have some extremely volatile stuff and some extremely not volatile, but still treated as volatile nerd stuff. I think we should go for that first and then see where the chat goes from there.
Okay.
Ladies in Warhammer. Oh my God.
Yes. There've always been ladies in Warhammer. We've got our Adeptus Sororitas.
Yeah. The Cosmere has space for them.
There's the Adeptus Sororitas, of course. We love our Sisters of Battle. There's female Eldar. That stuff exists. However, we have now had the breaking news, the earth-shattering revelation that the Adeptus Custodes, those who guard the Emperor, the golden armored warriors of Terra, are sometimes women, I guess. Right, like that's the big reveal that
some of the custodes, it fits. It's never not been not fittable in the lore from what I've been reading, and they just decided we can go ahead and just announce this.
Yeah, it's they put out a new Custodes Codex, and the new Custodes Codex indicates that there are women Custodes, which is, you know, fine. It seems
Stronger
cool
than
to
Space
me.
Marines, right?
Yeah, the Custodes are the Emperor's like personal special guard. Um, uh, and so they they're extra well trained. They're all like tactical geniuses and super good warriors and incredible heroes and defenders of the land. Um, and they some of them are women. Now Zed in the chat has cut straight to the core of the issue because they said, "I can't imagine all parts of the fan base will be down with that." And my friend, they're not. Some people are insanely mad about this, which is very, obviously extremely depressing, but also very funny because it's such a silly thing to be mad about.
As someone who follows the Warhammer lore because it maps 1-to-1 onto real world politics and is a totally real analog that is functional and viable, yes, I'm super upset that the Emperor's Guard has ladies in it now.
Yeah, it's really off the charts. I mean, obviously, like realistically, every time Games Workshop puts out a weird update that confuses people, it's uh you know an attempt to sell more miniatures, right? That was why they started doing 30K with the Primarchs. It's why they're bringing back all the new Primarch models. Like maybe Corvin Corax will come back, or Corvus Corax will come back soon, and there's going to be all kinds of Raven guys. Um, but uh, this one's really particularly striking because some people are off the charts uh, furious about the idea that the Custodes are potential. Like literally, it's not even like X number of them are women, or like there aren't even women miniatures yet. It was just in the codex that like some of them are women sometimes.
Yeah, from what I was researching, it was mostly a column of like flavor text talking about like I think it was like Calidice was her name, but just like a female custodian just overlooking her command. Uh, I really wonder, as far as outrage goes, like I've mostly been seeing reactionaries on Twitter and such kind of complaining about this. What purchase, like as a side of culture war, is Warcraft even that known as far as like what purchase this kind of outrage gets? I don't know if any politicians are gonna come out and like talk about this in the same way they do trans issues or even the woke mob.
I don't think so because I think that uh I mean it is a little bit smaller, but it's a huge number of people, right? It's just not as like broadly wide.
Right.
Um and so it is, I think it will be a little bit smaller, but the thing with Warhammer, and I say this as a Warhammer like not player because the game is too complicated. I don't have fucking time for that. But like I like looking into the uh I like looking into the lore. The lore is fun. It's exciting. I am intrigued by it. It's very funny. The lore is very, very funny.
Yeah, I the lore's always struck me as an everything is awful situation. Like finding one side of like good guys within the Warhammer lore seems like it seems insane to me. I've always been a fan of the like the chaos undivided kind of mythos and mythology in that aspect of it. Um, this is a gaming system with like beings like Slaanesh who are like the prince of pleasure, and there's like hedonistic gods and all kinds of just hyper violence and religion in it. That's more than the kind of reactionary fascism it gets known for, or that certain types of fans adopt the iconography for. And that's always just been silly to me because like you're liking maybe like 20% of the overall thing and disregarding so much text just to pigeonhole your particular like real world belief system into this fantasy one.
Right. And I think it's important to remember that Warhammer original, like both fantasy and 40K are like are written extremely satirically. Like it's not a coincidence that a bunch of British people made a game where part of the lore is that, or core part of the lore is that a effectively dead guy sits on a giant golden throne and they sacrifice tens of thousands of people to a giant sort of death machine to keep him alive.
Right, and the technology very much is like a death magic trade-off. Like there's obvious comedy in that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much funny stuff. I mean, one of my favorite. So the orcs are my favorite Warhammer faction. This is probably the least surprising thing you've ever heard me say, Henry. Um, but it's true. I love the orcs. And I love the orcs because part of how the orcs work is that if enough orcs believe in something, it just becomes true for them. So, like, purple orcs get stealth because orcs think purple is the stealthiest color. Or my favorite story in the lore is that, how does it go? Yeah, a bunch of orcs crashed their space Hulk and just climbed out of it and started fixing it. And then another orc popped up from a different ship in with a spacesuit on and was like, "Why aren't you guys wearing helmets?" And then they all died because they realized that they couldn't breathe. Red ones go faster. That's also true, Tav. And so it's the whole thing is like it's a great bit. Like the whole thing is a great bit. One of the original orc lords in the original Warhammer was named after Margaret Thatcher. Um, the orcs are so fun. I love them. But the point being that the whole thing is like clearly kind of a joke, and the way in which people take it so insanely seriously is stunning. I mean, obviously everyone's going to take everything seriously, but yeah, Bees Forever in the chat says Wile E. Coyote type shit. That's exactly the case. It's very, uh, very good. So I just think there's a ton of really funny bits. It's such a good thing.
Alex
In that
Butler,
respect.
yeah, Alex Butler in the chat's asking, what would you guys say is the best entry point for Warhammer? Do you have any suggestions for that, Lux?
Um, there are some pretty good books. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head which ones I like.
I remember
Oh,
for me immediately the thing that kind of got me into Warhammer was there's a Warhammer 40K variant of the board game Relic, which is like a single session kind of RPG type thing. So if you like tabletop gaming but you can't do a committed like long form campaign and you want something single session, the Relic variant of 40K pretty much features all the Warhammer lore and all kinds of universal features for people that might want to give it a taste.
yeah, the Eisenhorn books are very good. Someone said that in the chat. There's another series that's really good that I can't remember the name of. It's about like kind of a weird kind of rogue detective guy. There's a YouTuber named Lutin, I think it's Lutin, who does very good Warhammer lore videos. And I think that's how I got into it, was watching his stuff. And I thought that was very fun.
Dr. Clownicus
Um,
brings up Dawn of War,
the
which,
Dawn of War,
yeah,
the Dawn of War games are great. Um, the new what's it, Dark Tide? Yeah, I think it's called Dark Tide is the new one. Dark Tide and the Space Marine one that came out, which I don't think is called Dark Tide, are really good. There's a ton of really good Warhammer video games, also a ton of really, really bad ones. But yeah, exactly. Luton is how I got into Warhammer, specifically during COVID when I was just stuck at home. I was just watching a ton of Luton videos, and he's a really good starting point. But yeah, I think the more interesting thing, and we can talk, like, look, folks in the chat, if you guys want to just do a Warhammer lore stream and goof about Warhammer, we could do that. I'm here for it. But we were going to talk about how a chunk of super reactionary players are very, very mad that there are female custodians. And I think, uh, that there's something very funny about this, not just because it's satirical, like I was talking about, so I was talking about that, but also that this the idea that anyone can look at the things that happen in the world of Warhammer and be like, this is good to me, is so wild. Oh yeah, actually, some people talk about Bricky in the chat. Bricky's really good for Warhammer lore stuff too. I forget the name of the podcast he does, Adeptus something. I used to listen to it all the time. That is a great podcast for getting into it. And yeah, I mean, this is not a new thing. Obviously, people are always mad about anytime anything semi-woke. Adeptus Ridiculous. There we go. Thank you, Jack the Templar. Adeptus Ridiculous is in fact the name of the podcast I was thinking of. But yeah, there's always people getting mad about these sort of like you made my thing woke. I just think Warhammer is a particularly funny thing to be you made my thing woke about because it's always been so obviously critical of stuff. And I think that reflects that there's like these two readings where people are like, it's so funny and critical and weird. And then at the same time, people who are like, Warhammer's so serious and it reflects a serious and important perspective about the world. And like those two people coexist, which is why, as a friend of mine who plays a lot of Warhammer jokes, like 90% of people at Warhammer tournaments are either like weird punk trans people or straight up Nazis. I'm sure Hunter, shouts out to Hunter, is exaggerating the numbers there, but like you can see how that would happen.
I am curious with the Nazi faction how many actually play versus post. Just because I know, like, I mean, I'm not even a Warhammer player, but like, I will look at the posts, I will engage with the lore, I will read the wikis. I do wonder what the audience for Warhammer players versus just Warhammer consumers is, and where like a lot of these like more reactionary types land, because the sociality of that kind of attitude doesn't strike me as a tabletop gamer.
Yeah, I think that you're not wrong, and I think it is very true that they're definitely more of an online presence. But I know they show up at tournaments. Like, there's always like every couple months, Hunter will tell me about some weird story about strange. Some guy shows up wearing like a Hitler T-shirt and playing Black Templars or something.
Jesus.
So like those guys are real and they exist in the world. I think you're right that they are probably more uh uh like kind of floating out there. Someone in the chat, Darren C, says the point is game was lied about the lore. I mean, according to a lot of the designers, there was never specific lore about them being all men or women. I don't know, man. I haven't read all the codexes, but also like the point of all the 40k stuff is that in universe, it's all sort of no one knows any of the history of anything. It's all like made up nonsense. That's sort of the point of a lot of it. So I don't think it's really there. I don't think there is such a thing as like lying about the lore because it's all in fiction reported by people with weird biases and characters who don't know what calendar. Like there's like people don't even know what year it is half the time. So I think I tend to think that that's one of the fun things about Warhammer is that it's all sort of historically opaque. And so I don't think you can really say that they're changing the lore because it's not like, it's not, the story isn't a story about people telling a true history of their own past, right? The story is a story about people reconciling with an extremely broken universe. And so I just sort of, I think that particular complaint doesn't really make a ton of sense. Like if we're going to take the thing on its face, there's not really, in my opinion, a meaningful justification for that. But that's sort of somewhat a field of what we're talking about. But yeah, I just think it is funny that there is this constant like culture warification of literally anything.
Yeah,
that occurs.
This strikes me as particularly like a misdirected anger vent, or just like a consumer anger vent in substitute for real political frustrations or actions taking place.
Yeah, totally. I mean, okay, sorry, I know we do keep engaging with stuff, but Darren C says the narrative happens to shift towards California political bias. Weird. I don't think it's like a remarkable political bias to be like a woman had a gun and was tall. Like that seems like a sort of wild thing to be like super mad about.
Empowering all genders to be hyper fascist doesn't really strike me as like a real world. What is a California political bias? What features of that do we have?
I just don't think. I just don't think that that's like a well-reasoned position in the general sense. But I mean, I understand people don't like their stuff to get messed with. Like, I get cranky about people messing with, things that I like. Look, this is probably not the audience for this, but when they introduced the pitch clock in baseball, I got really super mad. I got really cranky about the pitch clock for as soon as I said that, the viewers dropped like 20 instantly. I was like, I haven't had baseball once, and everyone's like, fuck this. But like that's my point. Is I understand people getting mad about their shit, but like you gotta give it a real like or you gotta confront the thing on its own terms, man. Like it's a little bit silly to make this sort of claim.
Do you feel the pitch clock challenges the spirit of the game in some way, or do you feel the pitch clock is a woke imposition by social justice warriors trying to make you have less fun?
The pitch clock destroys my favorite thing about baseball, which is baseball is the only poetically speaking anti-capitalist sport because it's the only sport that's not subject to time. And now they've added a clock, which makes
Okay.
it subject to time. So the sort of poetic nature of a game that exists outside of linear time and the restrictions that capitalism imposes on like the body moving within the confines of the clock is now it's not true anymore. So I sort of, I'm sad about it. I'm glad Roger Angel is dead because he would have been heartbroken about this. If you guys don't know who Roger Angel is, he's the best baseball writer ever. You should read some of his stuff. It's even if you don't like baseball, his shit's just like gorgeous. He's an incredible writer.
Well, if we're talking about, capitalism and political impositions on the game, maybe we should talk a bit about last Friday's video. I have some comments rounded up for it on just, Hollywood. How do you feel about the video? How's it doing?
It's doing okay. Its numbers are all right. But it's it's not like a banging hit, but its numbers are doing all right. I thought that one was pretty fun. That one is definitely the basis or one of the classic Amanda and I complaining to each other about what the world looks like at work on our private messaging server that we use for to develop ideas. And it just becoming a video that then, as in the research process, fleshed out just like all the most horrifying shit you've ever heard of. I mean, that was a real bummer to research, but it's obviously a very fascinating video. A lot of people are intrigued and taken by the idea of the intrusion of private equity and finance into everyday life.
Yeah, I pulled up a comment. You want me to go ahead and do you have access to those? Do you see them in our chat?
I do. I'm just looking at the wrong thing. But yes, I do. We can get back to Warhammer if we want to, but let's take a quick detour to talk about the actual channel. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Which comment do you want to highlight, my man?
I'm going to start with the first one, which says, came here to shit on Hollywood.
Yeah, came to shit on Hollywood, left realizing that we are screwed if we don't regulate the financial sector. And that's sort of the juice of a lot of those of the comments that we have there. I think that is, I mean, that was the point of the video, right? Was to use Hollywood as kind of a hook to get into these other problems. But it's true. Like so we didn't use a lot of quotes from the Ed Zitron Rot Economy article. I'd recommend anyone who's interested in this stuff read that because he is a phenomenal writer and a really good critic of this kind of thing. But Zitron's piece talks a lot about how basically people don't make products for customers anymore, right? People don't provide services for customers anymore. The whole idea behind companies now, in most cases, is to be able to present growth to investors so that the technical value of the company goes up, even if there's not a meaningful actual growth in terms of like money being made from the actual object itself, right? And so what that means is that there's no incentive from a production in the broadest possible sense position to make more or better stuff.
Yeah, it
Uh,
brings to mind there's like a nagging question that's kind of been in my mind whenever like trailers and entertainments and like new releases are being announced is the question of who is this for, really? Some stuff it just seems like it's just there to fill up the quarter to have a release on the schedule to say you made a movie in those months.
yeah, and to sort of, there's all sorts of economic budgeting stuff that happens, but like you get more subscribers, you get more, you get ticket sales, you get outside investment in the thing. And that just grows their numbers, right? It just consistently pushes that line upwards. We're talking about the video we kind of laid this out in, which was last week's video on financialization. Um,
Yeah, I'll throw a link in the chat.
yeah, just throw a link in the chat, big man. Also, just guys, remember we have about 30 minutes left, and if you want to see Henry live, we got to get 217 more people to watch. So everyone email 2 friends. RE-urgent. Watch the stream. I want to gaze upon Henry.
I know we can hit 422, so my face isn't that far away.
Yeah, we've done it before. But yeah, so I think that with that, it really is just the sort of situation of um, there is no incentive to make things better for anyone, and so there's only these private equity firms that draw in that like we talked about in the video, buy a thing, reduce costs as much as possible so that the ostensible stock value rises, sell it for the increased price, let the gutted thing die, and that's bad always. It never ends well for anyone, and that thing has stretched from media companies to streaming services and Hollywood to housing and hospitals and
Yeah.
basically everywhere. And so, yeah, I think it's an important thing to be aware of because it is sort of the yeah, I'll take the beanie off. We get to 69 likes. Why not? It's hot in here, honestly. So this isn't even the hat I meant to wear today, but I couldn't find the one I was looking for. So if we get to 69 likes, I'll take it off. Oh, okay.
Welcome, Dead Card and Andres. Thanks for joining us. We've just been talking about Warhammer, talking about the most recent video. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, but yeah, I just think that whole thing is. I mean, the private equity thing just terrifies me to death.
Yeah, I have another comment from the video if you want to pull it up. It's the NT Escanar one, but it's kind of like talking about like this expanding beyond entertainment and Hollywood.
Hmm? Yeah, I remember when getting my master's degree about the science of healthcare delivery and management, being heartbroken when managing a budget and realizing that regardless of lowering the quality of all supplies to be cheaper, nothing saved money like firing people. It's crazy how much more I learn about greed and the rich, the more poor I feel, the more frightened I am to be treated as disposable. Yes. Horrible, terrifying stuff.
Reminds me of the first time I worked at a grocery store and realized how much food just gets kind of thrown out as shrink or waste.
Yeah, it's terrifying shit, and it's this thing where yeah, it's 1 hour officially. Who knows how long Henry and I will go? I do have a meeting I have to get to at 1:30, so we can't go any longer than that. Oh, 1:15. We can't go any longer than that. Maybe we'll go a little bit over since I have nothing to work on right now and we're having a good time. We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah.
No promises, no commitments. Living life freestyle. Might be longer since we're down to Burns because no one has to go to the stuff Burns has to do in the morning, and I don't have meetings for a little while. So, anyways, but yeah, the thing is right that we've sort of abstracted economics from material in a lot of ways. They're all it's all just numbers, it's all abstracted value, right? We talk about alienation on the channel all the time and object fetishization, but that's sort of what's happening, right? Things are being reduced to a very specific mechanism of value. Um,
Got Mr.
and
Cynic 18 in the chat saying, "Bro, retail is a garbage machine." And yeah, just even with sales and stuff, even something like a grocery store, you're still throwing out so much plastic, you're running through so much paper. It's just yeah, it's extreme.
yeah, and so we talk about alienation a bunch of the channel, right? We talk about this idea of labor being alienated uh from its from its production or from laborers, and value being this like imposed made up thing, right? Where it's no longer really the value of it's purely exchange value, use value is out the window. And so there's what's a good way to put this? We live in a world that doesn't conceive of food as valuable because it feeds people. It conceives of food as valuable because you can sell food to hungry people. Like I said before, hungry dogs run fast. I really have that phrase stuck in my head for some reason. I think it's because I listened to a podcast when I said it. Doesn't matter. And so the idea of what constitutes value has become so sort of bound up with the idea of financial expansion. Then that there's that idea of making lives better for people doesn't really matter to the people making big choices.
Just more growth.
Just more growth, right? Like that's the thing Zitron talks about, is that there's the only metric that matters is growth. Chris Thompson also wrote a great article about this in the context of Disney, that the only metric that matters is growth. So it doesn't matter if you are making more money. It doesn't matter if you are more sustainable. It doesn't matter if you have a happier or less happy workforce. What matters is that your company is getting bigger and more outside investors are looking at it and poking at it. And that is bad, I think. As Mark Nugent in the chat says, it blows my mind that you can have the same resources, talent, work, hours, capital, and overnight, because of market confidence, your buying power can sink. It is an insane system. Exactly. And obviously, I think we talked about this on the channel before, but Deleuze discusses the idea of the rationality of the irrational, where you construct a irrational system, a system that's based sort of in a way that is not conducive to humanity, is not conducive to reason, but you construct a rationality that exists within that system. So as a million people in chat have said, the system doesn't make any sense, right? Like if you look at it from a perspective as a human being, it's all fucked up and stupid. It doesn't make sense that we should be funding the David Zaslavs of the world at the expense of our art, or that we should be funding various private equity partners at the expense of our healthcare. That's stupid. But that's the world which we live, and a lot of people who live in that world rationalize and create their own internal rationality to justify the choices they make that are in line with that position. And so that is sort of the Deleuzian assessment of the thing that we're looking at.
Yeah, the video comment section, we had a lot of people who work in healthcare coming out and just explaining like similar fills they had been filling in their work, and that's depressing to me.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Jack the Templar says the economy is more orc-based. I think it's not just bigger is better and green is best. It's also just a pure product of belief. It is a thing where people just sort of assign value to it. South Park is kind of hit or miss for me, but their episode about the Margaritaville, where the economy is just a chicken running around, and people like drawing sort of secret divinations from this chicken running around, is so accurate, because people do treat the economy as a living object, but it is just created by sort of people's belief in it and people's belief in its rules and its dictation and constant, rearticulation of itself. And those irrational beliefs in the economy as it's structured, like I was saying when I referenced Deleuze, are like ingrained and compelled, right? Their ideology in the Zizek or Althusser sense. They're everywhere around us. They sort of inform everything, and so a lot of people just buy into it because there's not an alternative framework, and so the way that you succeed is by engaging in this irrational system, and it's bad. I would argue a bad thing that is fucking up everyone's lives and is making it harder for me to watch good movies every day.
Speaking of things that are good, let's look at the next comment.
Okay, let's do that, and then let's maybe.
Yeah, I think it'll lead us to more lighthearted conversation.
Yeah, I think so. I think we have a segue to something more fun. So let's talk about one more comment, and then we'll segue out. Which one do you want me to do? Not the Walk Hard one, I assume. Okay, so Burns references distaste for biopics, and someone said, as far as I'm concerned, Walk Hard is the only musical biopic worth watching, and they're right to say it. They're absolutely right to say it. I love Walk Hard. It is so good.
Yes, and As far as serious biopics go, I can't think of one that I would consider like a masterpiece. Like, there's finely crafted ones, but there's always like a bit of an imbalance to the biopic. When you're making hagiography, something typically gets simplified or flattened in a way that just doesn't really gel right.
Yeah, well, I think that now in a post-Walk Hard universe, it's almost impossible to make one that gets taken seriously because the Weird Al story is very good. The Weird Al story is very good because
Yeah.
the Weird Al story is very good because it understands the thing that I'm about to say, which is that you can't do it seriously because the tropes are all kind of have been like read to shit by Walk Hard.
Also,
So
the methods of communication over the past decade. Do we have room in like the popular like? Do we have a super like serious or unknown author who like we just see the work, never the person?
Thomas Pynchon.
Yeah, there's Pynchon. I'm thinking authors at this point. I was saying McCarthy passed away recently, but he was kind of like that. As far as like filmmaking or musicians go, though, I don't know if there's the same kind of like prestigious like this will save everything sense of momentum that a biopic used to be able to control, like in the aughts, even the '90s.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's just a lot more exposure to those people in a direct way because of social media and stuff. So
Right.
like, it's not at like people are narrativizing their own career, um, in such a like constant way
Yeah, Tav in the
that
chat
there's
bringing up Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping. I'm a huge fan of that
yeah
one as well.
another good one. But yeah, they get uh uh they get what was it? Yeah, people make their own stories, they narrativize their own stories on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever. And now you kind of don't get, now that a biopic isn't really revelatory in any meaningful way.
Right. John Chu bringing
That's
up
why
MacGruber.
yeah, I mean that's why all of the ones people are mentioning, Spinal Tap, Walk Hard, Pop Star, the Weird Al movie, all of those understand that the joke is really the joke on the structure and on the structure of those movies and on the behavior that is
Right, the
this kind of
constructed image of celebrity.
yeah, and the construction of this like self-narrativization stuff. And so I think you do get a meaningful sort of stuff coming out of that, but it's not the same as, a movie that makes me be like, wow, I care a lot about Jerry Garcia or whatever. Sorry,
Yeah,
Burns.
Jeff Nicholas brings up nostalgia for old rock and roll was huge for the boomers, and I just think of the Val Kilmer played in the Doors, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he played Jim. I think he played Jim
Jim
Morrison.
Morrison, yeah, which is kind of like a big example of like the pre comedic kind of go to like this is the biopic movie.
Yeah. But someone in the chat, can we chat, have been like, man, movies ain't what they used to be. However, Henry and I have been watching some movies that whip ass.
Yes,
So let's talk about something I like for a second.
go for
And then
it.
if we go back to Warhammer, another thing that I like. But speaking of semi biopics and movies that whip ass, you saw The People's Joker this weekend.
Yes, I saw The People's Joker at Austin Film Society and enjoyed it greatly.
Yes, I saw it at Fantastic Fest on its festival tour. What a piece of cinema.
Yes, I was blown away on a craft level just knowing like the kind of like editing techniques and trickery that goes into putting this thing together. And as far as like a created piece, like it's the most handmade feeling movie I've seen in a while, in a theater at least. I watched no budget, made with passion stuff a lot on the internet, but like seeing it on the big screen's wonderful.
Yeah, it rocks to see live. I was very lucky. I got to meet Vera after the screening and talk to her for a little bit.
Awesome.
And she was really nice and had a lot of interesting things to say. But that movie, so for those who don't know, The People's Joker is Vera Drew's kind of trans coming of age, coming out story, but couched within the story of someone becoming the Joker, not by way of, well, somewhat by way of weird chemicals, but also by way of getting burnt the fuck out on the New York comedy scene, a thing that I can also intimately relate to. and it's just so fucking funny. It's so funny. It's so specific in its targets, which I think is a thing that I've been missing in movies lately.
Yes, the T for teen joke was like, oh yeah, I did grow up with that. Like, there's a sense of voice to it when you're talking about the specificity that like it lends it power because it feels more personable than any other movie I've seen in a moment that does stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's someone mentioned in the chat that we're in a golden age of film. I don't think that that's true. I think we have some good movies, but we have a lot of bad stuff popping up. There's some good indie work happening for sure, like People's Joker. But I think one thing that's missing in a lot of movies is the sense of specificity and like targeting stuff. Like you look at 70s films, 70s films that I love, stuff like 3 Days of the Condor, All the
McCabe and
President's
Mrs. Miller is
Men,
one of my favorites.
McCabe and Mrs. Miller. All these movies are uh not are very specific about the thing that they think is bad and what they're reacting to and what they are pointing at.
Yeah, and to bring it back to People's Joker really quick, when watching it, it was a movie where I wasn't asking who is this for because like it felt like it was for me. It wanted to talk to me. It wanted to talk to an audience and entertain. It wasn't just there to fill time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not making any beans about it. It's talking about, it's very specifically about Saturday Night Live and why Saturday Night Live sucks. It's about UCB and why UCB sucks.
Yeah, they
It's
don't even
about
try to hide UCB. Like UCB is still there as far as like the shorthand goes.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's very clear what they're getting at. And so it makes the whole movie feel both more personal and more relatable because like whether or not you are like me and have taken classes and interned at a United Citizen or in Upright Citizens Brigade Theater and have endured the indignities of being an improv intern, you can still understand the idea of being alienated from or frustrated by an institution upon which you somewhat rely or aspire to be part of, or the sort of don't meet your heroes thing about it. And by making it so specific, the whole movie resonates a lot more. It's also a very cool movie just on a production level because there's so many collaborators to it because it was not uh it was the basically I think the way Vera describes it is that they put out a call for people to contribute stuff to the movie because they couldn't do the whole movie on their own. And so she got a bunch of people from online who are fans of her other work to contribute things like backgrounds, animations, music, stuff like that. And it uh it is incredible how it all blends together into such a seamless, amazing little movie.
Yeah, the use of animation and just I mean all the compositing just like not just like in close-ups and stuff but like Vera dancing through the streets and some of like the wide establishing shots. Uh just the way it's so glued together and insistent on being seen. There's a charm to it. I want to say I've seen a few movies in the indie vein that like have a similar aesthetic as far as like the camp and the queerness goes. But this one was very just like it was the most sincere of those. A lot of the other flicks I'm thinking of, like they're jokey to the point of like being insincere or like it's a fun romp that doesn't stick. But like this one's character driven in a way that I really loved.
Yeah, and Beatmaster from the chat says there are more movies created than ever. Which this is true. There are more movies created than ever. But to go back to what we talked about before, RE financialization, the incentive to create them from distributors and studios is often just to say we made a movie, which means a lot of movies are rushed through production, are rushed distribution, are rushed through post, and are not given the sort of TLC that movies need to really breathe and be excellent. There's a lot of good indie work happening. It is definitely true. There's Bees Forever is like into this also, but there's a lot of movies happening. That is very true. But a good number of them are either being made on shoestring budgets or are not being attended to be optimized or are being made within very specific constrictions, like how Netflix mostly always uses the same hardware setup for all their movies. Things like that distinctly limit the creative capacity and the artistic capacity of a lot of movies. I'm not saying that there's not good indie work being done. I go to indie film festivals a couple of times every year. I love that shit. But
Yeah, you can
The
you can find like recently made indie stuff on the internet, on Tubi, on YouTube. It's out there. It's more how we've organized distribution of these things. I haven't talked with a lot of people about movies as a cultural event, except maybe like Dune this year, and that's something that was more common in the past, I feel.
yeah. Yeah, there is a lot of good access to older movies, which I think is really good. I just like really like BMS Richard Horror. My girlfriend is a like we'll watch 2 to 3 horror movies a day on days she's not working, and I watch them with her sometimes, or I like work while she's watching them. And a lot of them are bad. um, I mean, it's good that people get those opportunities, and they're not bad because the people involved aren't capable of making a better movie. They're bad because there's not they are rushed out. There's like clear sort of stuff that could have used a second pass or a third pass that just isn't happening. Um, and it is a frustrating thing. Or like, oh my god, so many horror movies will opt for small scale practical effects for stuff, but will then use really bad looking CGI blood for their big scenes, and it just like looks awful. Um, it's stuff like that. So it's I think the climate is interesting uh, for that kind of thing, but unfortunately, it is not enough to sort of a rising tide raises all boats. However, like I said, there are some really great independent things, like the People's Joker is a really good example of this movie that are yeah, they take more risks with lower budgets, but the risks often don't land, which is unfortunately frustrating. I mean, I'm rooting. Like, look, here's the thing about me, and this is extremely true. I want literally every movie to be good. I love
Yeah.
movies, and I go into every movie really wanting to like it, no matter what it is. And it is just frustrating uh, to uh, to see stuff that I feel like is so close but doesn't quite make it. Yeah, Dr. Clonicus is right. Bring back squibs. But yeah, The People's Joker was incredible. I super recommend it to anyone. Uh, uh, super sorry. Someone messaged me on Discord with something that made me laugh. Um, I think that it's yeah. I recommend it to everyone. If you get the chance to see it, you should check it out. It's fantastic. If it's in your city, go see The People's Joker. It's a really fun meta commentary on sort of capitalism, gender, comedy, filmmaking, all of it. And it's very smart and it's very specific. You also watched one of my favorite weird little movies recently.
Yeah, before we get to that, I just want to add one last thing for the People's Joker. If you're dissuaded by the Batman stuff, don't be embrace the license part. You don't even have to be a huge Batman nerd to really get what the movie's going for.
Also famously not licensed, which is why it took a long time to come
Yeah,
out.
it's a huge region that was in the news last year.
Um, yeah, it's it was in the news a lot because Warner Brothers sent a cease and desist for screening the movie because obviously it has a bunch of Warner Brothers characters in it that they didn't license. Some legal struggles and back and forth later, it is now an available movie, which is very cool. It's very cool that someone made a movie that was punk rock enough
Yes.
uh, and defiant enough to do that. Andrew Naup in the chat says Hundreds of Beavers is a masterpiece made for 150K. Yes.
Yeah, I want to see
Hundreds of
that.
Beavers is exactly like that's the thing, right? Is that Hundreds of Beavers, which is an extraordinary movie. I love Hundreds of Beavers. I want to get that on the record. That movie fucking rules. Is an example of the possibilities of this sort of low budget, low restraint filmmaking. It is just that it is an exception, not a rule to the status quo.
Right. I only heard about that through, my film friends and the specialty screenings here in Austin. And then months later, I saw it popping up. It's popping up on Prime soon, isn't it? But yeah, again, it speaks to like you can make the thing, but like the structure and the distribution models are still kind of marred.
Yeah, that movie fucking rocks, and it is a great example of like the potential upside of this framework of movie. And yeah, Blumhouse it also hit or miss quality wise, but they for sure made a lot of money. They for sure built a fucking whole brand out of this stuff. But you saw. Let's talk about some real cinema for a second. You saw Don't Let the River Beast Get You this week, right?
Yes, and there was a thrilling and exciting river beast within the picture that was very scary, but I did not look away because it was also compelling.
Yes. Don't Let the River Beast Get You is a triumph of zero budget filmmaking.
It's also up on Tubi. I strongly urge everyone to go check it out. If the first minute grabs you, the whole thing's gonna just be the best experience of your life.
Yeah, if y'all should check out Hundreds of Beavers for sure. I think it's on Apple TV now or Prime or something. But Tubi and YouTube have this movie called Don't Let the River Beast Get You. It's made by a guy named Matt Farley. Matt Farley started a company called Moturn Media that makes movies. He also puts out an unbelievable amount of music on Spotify of varying quality, and is like a kids youth counselor. But he just makes a ton of stuff with like his friends and family. And Don't Let the River Beast Get You is sort of preeminent amongst that in terms of I think because I have friends who are like big Moturn Media heads. Shouts out to the homie Josh. And I can't get on that train all the way. I simply do not find all of them to be very compelling. But Don't Let the River Beast Get You is extraordinary.
And part of its charm to me was just everybody has accents. It's shot in like New Hampshire, Massachusetts. They're not putting on Rhode Island. They're not putting on like the the Midwest tone or their voices are natural. It feels real. It feels lived in. For a decade of big budget movies that are all shot on the volume or in front of green screens, it's refreshing to just see something happening outside.
It also is a movie that the fact that all of the actors are like friends and family of Matt and Charlie, the guys who make these movies, works because the setting is so strange. Beatmaster, I see your question. I think it's a fun game.
Ooh, yeah.
We'll do that in 1 second, but I will get to that in a sec. But yeah, it's such a fun thing that they do because the setting is so phenomenally weird in every way. Like it's a city where everyone knows who the best tutor is, and being the best tutor is very important.
Have to get more students.
There's a character who's a former professional athlete, but they never say what sport he plays. He's always playing a different sport when you see him. People have like sort of coffee shop meetings at the local cupcake store.
It's very educational about the uses of cat litter in its various forms too.
Yeah, it is. It has a lot of praise for vagabonds. It's a very weird little movie, but everything is so weird that the fact that the characters' performances are a little strange fits really well, and it feels coherent in a way that is really striking and interesting. So big recommend. But I think let's play this game that Beatmaster.
Yeah, I really like Beatmaster's question.
Okay, so I'll read it for everyone if you're not looking at the chat. Okay, let's create a hypothetical. You, Lux and Henry, make an indie movie. Would you pitch to studios, streamers, or try to distribute it yourself? Well, here's the funny thing. Henry and I both also work in making movies, but we're not doing Wisecrack stuff.
Yeah.
So this is a thing with which we have real life experience. I personally... Oh, wow, Old Grease. Thank you so much for gifting 10 membership.
New Lord of the Chat.
Yeah, Old Grease, take that seat. Jello shot. Sorry, step it up, dude. But incredible gift from Old Grease. Thank you so much. That is wildly generous. Yeah, let's get some hails for our new Lord of the Chat. Some hails and well mets. But yeah, so I work mostly in screenwriting and direction. And so when I've gotten directing gigs, they're largely freelance. So it's whatever the producers want to do. And screenwriting, I try to throw stuff to studios initially to try to get funding for stuff. before looking for independent financial backing for things. I know, Henry, you worked on a movie that was like poking around for distro kind of recently.
Yeah,
So
that's the first question I kind of bring up when Beatmaster asks is like, do I have the money already or do I need the money? Because if I have the money already, I'll just make the thing and then try to get a streamer to pick it up. And if that doesn't work, distribute it myself. Um, but if I don't have the money, that's a bit different because then it's like pitch it to a studio. What does the studio want? Is the studio going to compromise the vision? Do I have the connections to pitch to the studio? How much money do I need? Could I realistically get that money? Um, Honestly, just the first step is to make the movie, and then from there, it really depends on context and climate. But ideally, I just like to make the thing and have a streamer distribute it without much
yeah.
meddling.
I mean, honestly, I think if the movie is made and I get infinite distro choices, I would just distro through a studio because I want people to see my
Yeah,
shit.
I'd want it in a theater.
Like, I make stuff so that it could be on a big screen in a movie theater. Like, at the end of the day, that is just the truth, right? Like, I don't.
Yeah, putting things in a big screen in a dark room with loud noise is just it is magic. I really do believe that. Especially like going to like older rep screenings of 4:3 movies where they change the aspect ratio and you really feel like the power of a 40s movie on the big screen in a way you don't on a television.
Yeah. So I mean, I think most filmmakers also would say that like the dream is to have your stuff playing in a bunch of megaplexes. Like is to drive by the marquee of your local Regal cinema and see like, whichever, I don't know, I don't have the working title is the Heist Fantastic is a movie I'm working on. Like Heist Fantastic on like the marquee. Like that's the dream, right? That's the exciting thing. Um but like that is it's not, I mean, obviously making a bunch of money would be nice, but the dream is just like to have your work out there for everyone to see, right? That's why you make stuff for other people.
Yeah, if the
Um
studio's not asking for major structural changes and they just give me the money to make the thing, that's the option I'm taking.
yeah, yeah, because at the end of the day, I at least make things because I want people to see them. So whatever distribution mechanism gets in front of those people is the one that I want. Obviously, like if Heist Fantastic goes on Netflix or something, like that's also very cool, but it's not the same thing. I don't write or try to make movies to get it uh in front of on a small screen, right? I make stuff for the small screen. Henry and I have a public access show. You guys can go watch, go check out Keep It Together on YouTube. Like we make stuff for the small screen, right? The wrestling show is meant to be watched on the small screen, stuff like that.
Yeah, we
I mean, it's
stream.
meant to be watched live, but if you're gonna watch it, like watch it on, it's a more of
Yeah,
a quick.
outside of this too, I do live events and stuff that are explicitly made to be like shared on social, like TikTok vids, Instagram vids, stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
that's meant for a phone.
yeah. But if there's a way for me to make a movie and have it be in a theater, that's the thing that I want. I think that's the thing that most people want. And even if it's two theaters, that's more than zero theaters, right?
Yeah, Netflix does that for Academy Awards qualifications. So if it gets me an Oscar,
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so that I think that's the answer there. Like, and I think that's true with a lot of artists, right? Is that their stuff's for people, man. Like I have feelings I want to express and stories that I want to tell, and I want to tell them to people instead of to Final Draft on my computer or
yeah,
to Henry when we're talking about movies.
I want to be able to
Um,
ask people in large quantities. Is anyone else fill in this?
yeah, here someone asked for a Keep It Together link. I can get that.
Cool.
I'm I'm
I saw a question
actually
earlier I want to pull up too. Beef
I'm actually
Patio was
logged into Keep It
asking.
Together right now because I had to post the newest video.
This is away from movie talk, but still within the hobbies. But what do you guys think about Wizards of the Coast doing universe variant cards with Fallout and the like? I assume this is in regards to the Magic the Gathering expansions.
Yeah, I say to
Yeah, I
that.
feel it. It's. I saw someone say Magic the Gathering has just become Fortnite, and I do feel that it's kind of washed out what's made like the Magic the Gathering lore itself special to me.
Yeah, I very much agree. I really like the Magic lore. I like the Magic setting. I like the game. It's very fun. I
I
think that
love the framing that it's two wizards fighting.
and I think the branding stuff is a little bit frustrating. I think it takes some of the juice out of it. And if people like it, that's totally fine. It just like I like the specific creative vision of that kind of stuff. And so uh it takes some of the sauce out of it for me. Um which is tough. Especially, I don't know if people know this about the Lux Man, but for a while I supplemented my Wisecrack income by playing and winning Magic pre-release tournaments all around the city of Austin. And that was great. And so it's just, I don't know, it's something I used to do a lot as a kid, and so I don't know, it just kind of bums me out to see it try doing things that are like transparently money grabby. If that makes, I mean, obviously, like, I don't know, I try to be more forgiving of the money grabby stuff uh than other people, because I understand that like people need to get paid and it's hard to pay everyone, and you've got working artists, and I'm glad working artists are getting money for doing their jobs, but it also sucks to me, I guess, is the thing. Okay, we got to go kind of soon because I got this meeting, but people in the chat, or at least one person in the chat, was asking about the wrestling stuff. Henry, should we talk about our wrestling project a little bit?
Yeah, I also know, wasn't WrestleMania this past weekend? Did you have
WrestleMania was
anything
this
you wanted to
past
say about
weekend.
that?
Yeah, okay, yeah. You know what? Let's justify talking about wrestling for a second by doing a little bit about the philosophy of wrestling, because Bertrand Russell, I believe, right? I always get it confused with Bertrand Russell or Roland Barthes, who wrote whether it was yeah, it was Bertrand Russell, I believe, who wrote the wrestling thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Is it Roland Barthes? I'll get these two confused for this one thing all the time. I think it was Russell. Oh no, it was Roland Barthes in Mythologies. Yeah. Okay, before I get into it, I will answer the super chat from Blasphemous. I love Gerald's game. I actually saw Gerald's game in a theater at a film festival, and that one part that's really gross with the hand got one of my favorite audience reactions I've ever seen from anything in my life.
Yeah, excellent piece from Flanagan. Probably one of my, like, as far as his movies go, that might be my favorite of his.
Yeah,
Not
I think I
series, but
agree.
movies wise, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think I like most of the series too, honestly. But also like movies more than like TV, so that's that. But yeah, I like Gerald's game quite a lot, Blasphemous, and I thought it looked really cool, and I loved that one moment where the whole audience like realized what gross thing was about to happen, and they all went like, "Oh," and it sort of spread. It was very funny. But yeah, so Roland Barthes wrote an essay about wrestling in mythologies, where he talks about how wrestling is this heightened reality of false moral clarity. Not false in that it's not true within wrestling, but that the world itself doesn't necessarily contain that kind of moral quality, and that we go to wrestling because there is a very clear sense of who is good, who is bad, and what the good moral outcome to events is. That there's something fulfilling for us in like the pure exaggerated reality um of the thing. The essay is really great. I recommend everyone read it. Later, Old Grease, thank you again for the gifts. You've been a joy
Yeah, thanks for
in
hanging.
this thing. But yeah, so people love it, and so I have also always found myself attracted to wrestling for that reason. That I love that kind of storytelling, that kind of big, clear. Also the same reason I love Lord of the Rings, right? Like it's just there's good and bad stuff. Um, yeah, we have a great video about it on kayfabe. I want to do a video that's straight up a media analysis of wrestling, but we've never gotten around to it. Although maybe one day we will. But so because of this sort of like heightened reality of wrestling, I thought WrestleMania this past weekend was a real joy because it really tapped into just like really big, broad story. I guess not this past weekend, 2 weekends ago. Yeah, it's the Rock return was great. The main event at WrestleMania with 1 million people showing up, The Undertaker and The Rock, and the Usos and Seth Rollins all showing up and cashing out all these big dramatic moments with these big guys, this big fight, and everyone's having these big feelings. It's really exciting and really fun. And I think it is a thing where you see wrestling's popularity has been growing. And I think a big part of that is that we live in a world where moral clarity and moral specificity is increasingly dwindling. It is increasingly difficult to feel or understand yourself as a moral actor in a world where the, when you order stuff online, you're exploiting 7 or 8 different people every time you do it. Or where there's just, a world where people are fucking mad about women having big guns in Warhammer, right? Like there's so much sort of moral tension in the world that we live in that something as morally clear as wrestling has like a profound narrative power that is impactful and significant because it kind of reminds people about the significance of and the power of moral clarity. And I think wrestling is really good about that. That's sort of why the show Henry and I make is extremely like tries very hard not to create a distinction. Like we try very hard to make it very clear who the bad guys are, right? There's always like an evil business guy or like a mean high school person.
Yeah, when you have an audience cheering you on, you want them cheering. You don't want them going like, "Wait a minute, am I cheering for the right side? What's going on here?" Like, "Oh, there's questions being raised. Should I ponder this?" Like, no, they want to be excited within the moment, and you want to deliver on that without abusing it.
Yeah, and you want people to have space to cut loose in that way, but you also want people to have space to express the sort of moral vindication that is built into the narrative and into the performance.
Yeah, I find it interesting. The moral vindication stuff you're bringing up too makes me think about the old, that's fake, right? Like the criticism, and I feel that's kind of faded away over the past decade. I feel it's been something less and less as like wrestling's more known on the internet, and kind of like the general idea of like kayfabe is understood by people, and they're like, oh no, wait, yeah, it is fake, but like we want the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, someone up in the chat said they thought it was soap operas for boys, and like it is. It's a fantastical world of fiction. It's a fantastical world of fiction that has a sort of false reality. Like it's a suspension of disbelief exercise, and one that has like very clear moral excitement built into it. Eddie Villanueva asked, do people desire a return to meta narratives? And I think that's an interesting question because I think there's 2 ways to think about that. I think on one hand, yes, I think people do want a return to fiction with sort of moral clarity. On the other hand, that speaks to sort of things beyond the text in a really explicit way. I think on the other hand, the issue with that is that we live in a world where people will retcon stuff they like to be meta-narrativized into their pre-existing political or sociological position, right? You see this a lot with, we can use Warhammer as an example again, right? Warhammer is a thing that is explicitly satirical about conservatism in England, and people are mad that it's woke now, right? So it's this thing where you have these sort of societal meta-narratives within the fiction, without the fiction, that are interacting with this thing, but a desire from people to position it however they want, which is allowed, right? Death of the author. You can prescribe whatever you want to things, but at the same time, there's, how do I put this right? At the same time, it makes it very difficult to morally meta-narrativize anything that going on in the world because there's such an epistemic distinction between what people think is happening. Like, that's the thing, right? There's this epistemic distinction epistemic failure that is happening where you can show people the same set of facts and they will tell you 2 different things happened. Because that's the world we live in now, where no one believes anything and people believe facts only insofar as they interact with their pre-existing view of the world. Because of that, things like meta-narratives are kind of impossible because people aren't reacting to reality. They're reacting to a pre-circumscribed set of possible outcomes and interpretations. And so I think people do have a desire to return to meta narratives, but I don't think that we live in a society that cultivates the possibility of meta narrative in any meaningful way. At least not in a way that is sort of cross population possible. Not to get sad about the crisis of knowledge, but it is an unfortunate reality. Henry, it's 1:10 where we live. I have a meeting in 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's
I think
go
it's
ahead and
time
get.
for us to say goodbye to our friends. Hopefully in the future we will do this again and we will get enough viewers that you guys can see Henry.
Yeah, no face today.
Yeah. And then we can all have a great time. We will. This was so fun. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. You were a joy. What a beautiful way to start a Monday, the day that I am mad about every time.
Shout out
Everyone,
to Old
yeah,
Grease for greasing us up as well. I'm
yeah,
lubricated and ready for the week.
yeah. Thank you for that, Old Grease. Thank you to Burns. Let me do this, and I hope Burns recovers soon. And hopefully, yeah, maybe next time Henry and I get to do this. Burns is being re-educated in his Canadian education camp and is out of commission for another 4 minutes until our meeting.
We can
But yeah,
send him
maybe
your.
we'll get.
I was about to say we can send him your correspondence, but it has to be in French.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys are great. We will talk to you guys soon. Hopefully, we will get to do this again in the near future, and we'll all get to goof off again. Y'all have a great Monday. Have a great week, and we will see you soon.
See you soon, chat. I'm going to go rescue Michael, and Wednesday we should have a show for you. Bye.
All right. Much love, y'all.